Hello and welcome to the Superior Comic Show. I'm your host, Peter, and today on the show we have a huge guest. The chances are, if you watched the animated X-Men, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, Ghostbusters, Jackie Chan Adventures growing up, this man was a huge part of your childhood. So, without further ado, the amazing Larry Houston. Welcome to the show, Larry.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
I mentioned there, and I just barely tipped the iceberg with all the work you've done on when it came to basically huge parts of everyone's childhood and everyone's TV experiences growing up. How is it now
I,
knowing that you have like basically, I've got to say, it is shaped a particular part of the mind of a whole generation?
it's kind of I'm really I felt really blessed to be in the right place at the right time in the 80s and 90s because I was able to bring my a combination of my fanboy approach to storytelling with blending it in with being a professional director and blending the two together to try and make the best shows that I could. Um, yeah, I the shows I was able to be in charge of are the ones that I think I made the most difference because I was able to put my vision onto the screen for everybody to see. And the main one was like the X-Men. I was able to basically shape that show the way I wanted to see it. And to a lesser degree, it was also like when I did the Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, and the other show was the Karate Kid, which nobody saw, but it was fun to work on. And GI Joe, and the shows I was in charge of, Captain Planet, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you really have. And to this day, the animated series of X-Men is widely considered the best on-screen version of the X-Men. Still to this day, what, 20 odd years later, 20, 30 years later?
Yeah, I'm glad. It's the X-Men was a show that when it got put on the air, except for a few executives, nobody believed the show was going to survive one season. And because of that, they were kind of hands off in like micromanaging the show, which is great for me because it's like, okay, they thought it was gonna be one and done. So I said, okay, if I'm gonna go out, I'll go out and blaze of glory, and I'll make the show exactly the way I want to as a professional and as a professional fanboy. I want to put this version on the screen and hope, I'll just follow my gut and make the show as best I could. And we were one of the things that they thought were wrong. You don't kill a character off. You don't do continued stories. What's the third one? Oh, and you're supposed to write down the kids, but we were ones to write up the kids. Don't do Scooby-Doo, do something, we don't want to do Scooby-Doo or Super Friends. We want to go up here. And they said it was all wrong, and then we were doing it all wrong, and blah, blah, blah. So the first season, I know a lot of people love the Phoenix and Dark Phoenix sagas, but for me, the first season was the hardest because if that hadn't succeeded, there would have been no season 2, 3, 4, 5. And so I poured my heart and soul, all of my fanboy knowledge and anime knowledge into that one season to make it the best I could. And it worked because you guys watched it.
Yeah, like, and I think the reasons you listed there that they said it was all wrong were kind of the reasons why I personally was drawn to it. I love when a show isn't afraid to kill off a character, and as a kid, I loved that I didn't feel like it was, as you said, talking down to me. It was on a level par with me. I could understand something, and if I didn't understand something, I'd ask a parent or an older cousin, "What does that word mean?" I didn't need to be like messed up. I didn't need to be like handled with care. I just give me my X-Men, and you did that.
Right. Well, that's good because I had a very similar thing happen to me when I was elementary school. I picked up my first, I think it was either a Fantastic Four book back when the Silver Surfer was fighting the Thing, or there were words in there. I had no idea what they were, and I kept bugging my mother until she bought me a dictionary. She said, "Here, you figure it out." And then that's how my vocabulary started growing. but it wasn't like the teacher was forcing. It's like, I wanted to learn. And so yeah, so I have a similar situations, like finding out what words meant, what this meant, what that meant. We decided, myself, story editors Eric and Julia Leewall, we decided to, try and do as accurate a depiction of the X-Men, as we could. And even Marvel back in New York, they weren't sure about what we were doing. They were like keeping us at arm's length because they weren't sure if it was going to be a good show or not. And the thing is, what they didn't realize is that myself, Will Mineo, Rick Holberg, the three of us were all comic book artists, comic book geeks, if you want to call it that. But we're also professionals. We had worked in the business for like at least 11 to 12 years before we got the X-Men. So we had a lot of experiences in how to do production, do shows before it was handed to us, the X-Men. So we knew what to do.
Yeah, and I'd say now they're looking at trying to create that, because nothing has hit the heights of that. They've had some successes, but nothing has been as huge as that X-Men series.
Well, thank you. It's a testament that we were. It's like lightning in a bottle. We were kind of like, luckily, creatively, we were all on the same page together. We all wanted to do the same thing, and believe it or not, the writers were not X-Men fans. They did not know the series. They didn't know the mythology and stuff. But myself, Will, and Rick, we've been fanboys from like 70s, 60s, whatever. And especially me, I had all that knowledge in my head. I know this is, this person like this one hated that one, there's the brother of this, I know all the relationships in my head without even opening a book, because it was all stuck inside. And so I educated the writers and story editors about the characters, so that then they could take those relationships and they took the books, they read the books, and then started adapting it for television. And the thing is, with television, you have a 32-page comic book you can read, but on television, it's only 25 minutes.
Yeah.
So you got to take books and adapt them so that it's the heart and soul of what the story originally was. You can put that up on the screen so people they'll recognize the story, even if it's not literal. It follows the intent of the original story, and that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, I say, like, that was one of my questions, was going to be, how difficult was it to adapt these big kind of meaty stories into a 20-odd minute episode, because it was done so well, and I recognized each comic storyline as it came on in an episode, and to this day I still do. It's like I've been watching it back because for maybe the 10th, 11th time, because I just
yeah, the one thing good about the writers that we had was that they were very good at writing character dramas. And so knowing how each one related to each other, they were able to construct good stories around some of it original, some of it is existing from the comic books. And then once they gave me the stories, I made sure all the visuals matched the comic books. I literally brought my collection of comic books from home into work and put it on a Xerox machine. And when we needed some characters, I would just Xerox it off. You got to remember, no, there was no internet back then where you could go click, 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 click. No, it was put it on a machine, Xerox it, I handed it off to all the artists to work on. And that's how you also got a lot of the cameos, unexpected other Marvel characters that would pop up here and there. That was stuff I did on my own. I tried to put Spider-Man in once, and they told me no. And the next time I did cameos, I didn't include the name, and it went through. So it's like, okay, that's why. And the first appearance of the Black Panthers, season 2 or 3, I can't remember now, but he was called African Mutant Number 3. That was his name. That when it went through the system, I think the Watch was the alien, mutant alien or something like that. It was all these weird names, but they were just called something else. But if you knew Marvel Comics, you knew, oh, that's the Watcher. Oh, that's Doctor Strange. Oh, that's Iron Man. You know, you would know.
Yeah, so you were finding loopholes for here and there. So you get these.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was fun to put in once I discovered how to work the system, you know.
And it is like you can tell watching it that it was done, as you said, by a comic fan, someone who knows the lore, knows the backstories.
Yeah.
Was the X-Men, were they your favorite comics growing up, or did you have other favorite characters?
The X-Men was my favorite. The other favorites I had was back in, I guess they called it the Silver Age. It was a book called The Legion of Superheroes over at DC Comics. And it's kind of basically similar to the X-Men, where you have a bunch of kids with superpowers. Each one's got something individual, like the X-Men. Each one's got something different. But it was like Legion of Superheroes, Superman. At Marvel, it was Fantastic Four and X-Men, Avengers, Thor. I ran the gambit of, like, I loved all that stuff because it was like eating, you know, it's like I soaked it up every month. Went out and buy the books and read it until the books were falling apart, but just kept reading. And I was lucky in high school. I met up with people who were just like, you know, comic book geeks, and we were in art class, and so I had at least about 6 or 7 of us. We were all into comic books, and we could talk to each other about what we picked up this month. Look at this artist Kirby. Oh, look what John Buscema's doing. Oh, look at Ditko. Look at, you know, we look at the stories and how they related to each other. That was a lot of fun to actually meet like-minded artists and people that you could talk to about your you know, the stuff you read for fun.
And you mentioned there you've worked on a lot of shows in terms of Marvel. Like there was the Fantastic Four show, Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and then Spectacular Spider-Man as well. And
yeah,
there, like, it's just if I was to list off all your credits here, that would be the whole show. You
yeah, I was lucky. I got a chance in Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. I actually did write one. Like, it was like crazy. The first time I got there, I got a chance to write an episode. It was an episode called Swarm, where there's bees are made look like a man and they go after the spider friends. So I wrote the story. I got paid for it, but I never got credit for it. But that was my story.
Yeah.
So I got one of those in there. And on the Amazing Friends, whenever a script would be coming over and it would have anything to do with the X-Men, I would tell the producer, I want to do that part. Give me that section of script. And every time that the X-Men, I took that part of the show and I would storyboard it, because I was trying to show, first it was fun. Second, it was a way of trying to show the networks the X-Men.
Yeah.
Hey, this would be a good new TV show to put on the air. And so I'd always try and jazz it up and make it look really fun. And maybe back then it was only CBS, NBC, and ABC that maybe they would, you know, turn into a show. I mean, I was one of the co directors on a show called Pride of the X-Men. It was a pilot. And we did our best. That they weren't interested in the show. We did our best, but it didn't work back then. The 3 networks didn't know what the hell's an X-Men, what's a mutant, it's too complicated, blah blah blah, you know, whatever. So it wasn't until like 6 years later that we got the real X-Men on the air.
And then you also worked on X-Men Evolution as well. I find that still to this day has a very cult following. That, like, I love the versions of the characters from that, and I've seen when WandaVision was coming out, people were throwing up this Wanda Maximoff from the X-Men show, and they were like, "This is Wanda Maximoff, not that."
Yeah, yeah. After I finished the X-Men, I had my friends Steve Gordon and Boyd Kirkland were in charge of that show. We're all friends, and so they did the other version, And they, asked me to do a couple of storyboards. I, did some storyboards on the show. It's fine. It was not my version. It's another version, but that's what the networks wanted. They didn't want it to do the X-Men that I did. They wanted something totally different. So that's where that came from.
I think take that as a compliment. I think they probably wouldn't want to do the X-Men you did because nothing's ever going to live up.
And so yeah, so they there's 3 versions. Mine's X-Men Evolution, and then Wolverine and the X-Men. So I guess there's 3 of them out there. So there's a little flavor for everybody.
And in terms of do you keep up now? Do you enjoy the current movies now, the Marvel movies?
The ones that are done by Marvel, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I really admire Kevin Feige, what he's doing with the Marvel movies, because it shows that he likes the Marvel characters. And I get the feeling sometimes DC Comics or Warner Brothers, the movie part, they're very embarrassed about having superheroes, and so they try and make him they try and make him into something that they're not. Whereas Kevin Feige at Marvel, let's do the X-Men, let's do Ant-Man, let's do Thor, he embraces the mythology, and takes the books and put it on the screen. And the other good part is that what he does is that they had a plan, like a 10-year plan of like how they're going to build up to Thanos. They're going to set up all the Infinity Stones. They're going to set up the relationships of each property, like Thor and Avengers, Iron Man, Ant-Man, stuff like that, knowing that they're going to bring it together and make into Infinity Wars and Endgame. It's fantastic. And now they're doing the same thing with WandaVision. She's setting up another 10 years of craziness that's going to happen, and they're probably going to be adapting stories that I'm not familiar with, but it's going to be fun.
So I do love what you said about Marvel. There's a lot of storylines they've adapted over these 10-12 years. The cinematic universe has been running that I don't recognize, and I think it's a win-win when I don't recognize a story, and I would ask one of my friends on Twitter, what story is this from? And they'll say, this one, I'm going and buying that comic. So they're getting the sale of the movie.
Yes.
And WandaVision now, everyone was theorizing how they're going to introduce the X-Men into the MCU.
Oh, yes. They got me too, because I thought when they did the Quicksilver switch, I was going, wait a minute. But, since it was like it was a false lead they put out there for everybody to go with. But the thing is that in, I think it's Doctor Strange movie, he talks about, or the Ancient One talks about the multiverse and different worlds and stuff like that. So the next Doctor Strange movie is going to be I think it's called the Multiverse of Madness with Wanda. So it seems like that could be a way for them to bring in the X-Men or mutants in general, I guess, or the Fantastic Four, because when you think about the last 10 years they've set up in their movies, where were they?
Yeah.
Where were the mutants? Where was Fantastic Four? How come we haven't seen them? The multiverse could be a reason why how they come into our storylines.
And with them coming in, with the team, would you like to have that OG original X-Men team come in first and then build on it, or do you have your own team you'd love to see come in?
I like the team that we came up with for the show, especially the superpowered Rogue. I mean, that's the one character that really needs to be with powers. I mean, Rogue, the way we set it up, she is super strong. She can fly, Southern accent. That's the one character I hope they get right.
Yeah,
because the ones they did in the movies for Fox, it was Rogue and it wasn't Rogue. Because she used to Rogue being someone who could kick ass and talk shit and have fun, But with Kevin there and John Favreau, those two guys seem to have a handle on making good movies. So I'm just kind of sitting back and enjoying what's going on. You know, I just saw the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and I know it's like it's not gonna be 9 episodes. It's gonna be like 6, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like each one's like a little chapter. It's like, okay, this is good. Let's see where they're gonna go with it. I'm just letting it. I'm trying to avoid any kind of spoilers. Kind of stay, you know, kind of avoid them, and I just want to watch the show fresh, just like I'm just another member of the audience, and I just want to escape into the film, you know, have some fun.
See, I love that. That was me with WandaVision as well. I had my own fan theories. They got me, and I introduced a lot of people I know to Mephisto simply because of WandaVision. I was left looking foolish, but I think that's the fun of what Marvel and Kevin Feige does. It opens you up and it lets fans' minds run wild about these theories.
Yes.
9 times out of 10, it's no, you're wrong.
Yeah, because they're going in a direction that, okay, that's a direction I didn't think about, and that still follows the books, you know, that kind of stuff, and that's fun.
And is there any X-Men that you think that you worked on that you think would serve better as a episodic TV show than a movie when they get introduced?
Oh wow. There could be several. Is there one? I would say the easiest one to do would be maybe Gambit. The hardest one might be the Beast, because you'd have to CGI him. You know, it's a lot of CGI work with all the fur and everything, and his size. Gambit, because he has the only thing he has is you'd have to do is put the contacts in for the eyes, and he's a character that can walk in and out of any situation just like a normal person. I guess the other easiest person obviously is going to be Professor X.
Yeah,
he's in a chair. He does you know, effects. That's real easy, cheap to do. You know. I guess there's a couple. You could even do Jubilee, I guess, because it's just a matter of her doing zap and stuff happens.
It will be interesting to see whether they put any in shows. Like personally, for me, I'd love to see a Nightcrawler TV show.
That would be interesting. Yeah, Nightcrawler's a very interesting character. It's a lot of makeup work, though.
Yeah,
you know, because he can't look normal. So every shot is a CG shot.
Yeah,
because you also have that tail doing this stuff here and everything. They tried to get around it, I guess, in some of the books by having something called an image something where he hits the button and it looks normal. They did it in Evolution too.
Yeah, kind of like Paul Bettany's Vision, as it's explained to make it a little easier. Vision can just make himself look human.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's one way to get around having to not spend a lot of money. That's right. They did that in First Class, X-Men First Class too, where they had the Beast being able to be normal, so it's less expensive that way.
Yeah, I suppose they're masters at saving money and making money.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I talked to my friends once recently about how, as awful as COVID has been, having almost a year off from having no superhero films was probably a good thing for the films, not for people, but for the films, because there's been a huge pause in having so many films come out, superheroes, that people were saying we're going to OD on them.
Yeah.
Well, we had a whole year with nothing, so now there's a pent-up demand for escapism, and I think like WandaVision and the other ones coming out are really there's a big audience for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was a year or just over a year between Spider-Man Far From Home and WandaVision, and it was just nothing. I mean, and when the Mandalorian came out, it was like, you know, wow, okay, great. So we don't have to think about COVID right now. We can just get into this adventure, this guy. It was great.
Yeah, so I think there's a big audience for it. And if Marvel rolls out the Fantastic Four and the X-Men properly in the next couple of years, it'd be great. And I'm just, one thing for me, because I'm what am I, 66 years old now. I'm so happy I lived long enough to see all my comic books on the big screen, and actually with a good budget and well written.
Yeah.
What a bonus. I had some really bad superhero shows in the 60s, Captain America, Thor and Hulk, and it's like, no, it pales in comparison to what you guys got as entertainment.
We were lucky. Like, growing up, for me, Blade was the one that kicked it all off, and then we had the X-Men, Fox X-Men, and then it was Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, which for me, I know it's a cult classic and people love it, and to a lot of people that is their Spider-Man. To me,
Right.
Grew up, I read the Ultimate Comics was where I started, and I just could never settle with Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man, and it just nothing right until Tom Holland whipped Captain America's shield off him in Civil War, and that was when I was like, okay, this is how I see Spider-Man.
Yeah, that was a great shot. And then they animated the eyes so that they could move a little bit, and I was like, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah, it's incredible. With Disney now having bought Fox out, and basically Marvel have the rights back to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, if they were going to do an animated show again, would you be the first name on the sign-up sheet?
I've said this before, but yeah, if they want to do another X-Men, I would unretire to work on it, and if I would say that even if it was just like a direct to video movie, like just a one-off, a one-shot, I'd be up for that too, because we have stories that we never got to in the series, a couple of things, and it would be nice to do something to like button the series, show them what we would have done if we would have had another season. I think we had 5, so if we had gotten a 6th season, this is what we would have been able to do. Or that's probably the only series I would unretire from.
So it's that near and dear to your heart.
Oh yeah, and all the voice actors except for Cyclops, unfortunately, because he passed away. But I talked to all the voice actors, and Rogue and Gambit and everyone else, Wolverine. We're all ready to work on another version or continue what we already started. All I gotta do is just give us a call, or we're here. And so I tell fans that if you have more clout than I do, and the best thing to do is to go on Twitter and talk to Disney Plus or John Favreau or Kevin Feige, and just let them know what you want to see. If you want to see some more X-Men, let them know, because that's where it starts.
Yeah. I think the trick to that as well, actually, that you mentioned, is when you're trying to convince a big studio to bring something back. I think we've seen the good and the bad side of that with the release of Snyder Cut. I think there was a lot of people who were just calmly, nicely saying, we want to see this movie. But then the problem was the other 50% that were a bit too overexcited, to put it lightly.
That's a good diplomatic way of putting it. Yes. Yeah. So there's a good and bad to that type of harassment.
It's like you mentioned there, the voice actors. That was another thing I wanted to bring up. The voice actors for the show were perfect. When I was reading comics, it was almost like this is exactly how I imagined Wolverine and Cyclops and Rogue to sound. It's like spot on. How did you, were you part of the hiring for the voice actors, or?
Yes, I was one of 5 who was part of the decision making in picking the voice actors. Now, initially we had people who did those characters, but they did it all wrong, because they did it more like a Super Friends cartoon, really high pitched, and they didn't talk to each other. It was all wrong. So we had to recast the show. And instead of going for a traditional cartoon voice people, we went to people who did stage plays, people who did live action performances. And so everybody we got was someone who they worked in stage plays. And so they brought that type of experience in doing live action performances to their voice. And we made sure that what we wanted was that type of talent to bring it out into the show. So a lot of the, like the guy who does Beast, that's his voice. You talk to him, that's his normal voice. Jubilee, the same thing. That's her normal voice. Well, not anymore, but she's gotten older. But Rogue, you call her up on the phone. You're gonna hear Sugar, and she's a Canadian, but she talks that way. All things, yeah. Let's see. Gambit was Gambit, yeah. Gambit, Rogue, Beast. Who's another one? Wolverine. Okay, Wolverine. That's a voice, but it's all he has to do is lower his register when he's talking. But he does Wolverine in a blink of an eye. You can pull it out, and yeah. Let's see who else. Jean Grey. That was her normal voice. See, one of the things, all of them did stage plays. So working in theater. So that's where the quality of the voices came from these guys, and they really brought those characters to life.
Yeah, like I said, they were so spot on in my mind, and it was just any X-Men show or animated show that they tried, even with Evolution, as much as I enjoyed the different take, I just couldn't get my mind around it because these voices from your one were still in my head, and I was like, Wolverine sounds weird in this show, and I think because it was like growing up, that was my show. I think it stuck with me, and I think it's never gone away.
Yeah, I know. Kind of like when you read the books, you can hear their voice in the characters that you're reading in the books. It's like, yeah, Cal Dodd is going to always be Wolverine for me, because that's when I read it, I can hear him saying the words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like I said, you've worked on so many shows and so many like very successful and iconic shows, but X-Men seems to be that just main feather in the cap. Even talking to you about it now, you're full of smiles, you're excited, and it's just brilliant to see that the X-Men.
That was my favorite, most out of all the, because I worked, let's see, what is it? 32 years I worked in the business. Out of that entire range, the X-Men was like my favorite. I worked on that for like 4 years. The first 4 years I produced and directed the show, and I basically made all the decisions in the show in terms of visuals. And it was like the best time out of all the 30 years was that time.
And you've done some live action storyboard as well. I only realized when I was doing my research that you've done a storyboard for the show Community.
Oh God, yes, that's right. They called me up because they wanted to do a G.I. Joe story. So they called me up to do new opening titles. So I did a new intro like the old G.I. Joe titles. And then I think I storyboarded one of the acts, either act 2 or 1. It might have been act 2, but anyway, yeah, I worked on that show too. That was a lot of fun.
How different is it between animated shows and live action with doing the storyboarding? Is it a different challenge? It's
a different challenge in terms of like when you're doing animation, you're doing the entire choreography of the scene, meaning that the character comes in, picks up the glass, drinks it, gives their dialogue. When you're dealing with live action, you're just setting up the shot. Like, okay, he's in a chair like I'm sitting, things are behind him, and you might have one gesture and that's it. And then the actors and director takes it from there. It's basically setting up the shots, and
yeah,
then everybody runs with it from that point forward.
So basically, with the live action, you build the foundation, but with the animation, you build the house.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a lot more. It's a lot more work for animation, especially if you want to get it right.
Yeah.
Because if you try and draw it with shorthand, when it goes overseas and comes back, you're not going to be happy with it because they're only going to do what you told them to do.
And with I find myself, I told myself before this, I wasn't going to just keep badgering you about the X-Men, but I find my mind going back constantly to the Did you have a favorite episode that you done? Was there a favorite, or was there too many good ones to pick between?
There's a lot of good ones, but the first one that comes to mind is season 1, the very last episode. Because when I did that episode, I had no guarantee of a season 2. There's no guarantee of another season. And so I said, okay, this is my last shot at doing the X-Men. So I put my heart and soul into the show. I redid stuff. I redrew a lot of stuff in the show, all the choreography, and tried to make it the best episode I could. There's parts of it like when Meg, let's see, the scene of Xavier getting ready to dive bomb Master Mold, and Magneto joins them to protect the ship as they fight the robot together. Well, that wasn't in the script. I made it up. And then when they blow up the robot and he's in the parachute, they have that conversation. That wasn't in the script. I made it up because I wanted to reestablish that they're frenemies.
Yeah.
They have a relationship. He's not just a bad guy. Let me shoot the missiles and kill the world. No, it was more deeper than that. There's a scene where Wolverine is in a cave fighting the Sentinels and it goes black and white, black and white. It strobes. I made all that up because I wanted to do something that hadn't been done before. So I was challenging myself to come up with some interesting visuals that had not been seen before. So that's where that came from. And there are other pieces and stuff, but I made that my swan song. It's like, okay. And it was the delivery. We're getting ready to deliver the last show. I had storyboarded Gene and Scott on a blanket talking about having kids, getting married. And it ends, the original shot was them on a hill, sunset, fade out. That was it. And then at the very last minute, they said, don't go anywhere. Don't find another job. You got to pick up for season 2, but you got to change that ending. So we literally had to create something. We created this like bogus CGI computer screen with blinking lights and stuff. And then we resequenced it so that when Gene says, who knows what future holds for us, we had a technician, we grabbed someone and said, here, say this. And he said, Sinister knows what your future holds. And he added up like a computer shadow. And that was it. And that was the new ending for season 1. But we had no, that wasn't the real voice actor. It was just somebody we grabbed to do the voice. And, but that to me was my favorite episode beside Time Fugitives, a Rogue Story. There's a whole bunch more, Dark Phoenix. But that one's the first one because it was one that I had no idea if I was going to keep working. I was going to move on to another show. Figured, okay, that's it.
That's crazy. I did not know that was changed like that last second. And you must have had a feeling that, like, you were told, as you said from the start, that they didn't think this was going to work. So when they told you it was season 2, there must have been just a little bit inside of you that went, ha.
Yes. It was a huge, like, yes, we got a season 2. Great. Okay. And, but, it was one of those things that season 2, when you think about all the seasons that we had, the network even though they picked us up, they were still cautious. They only said, okay, you got another 13. Let's see what you can do with this. And so we would only have 13 episodes. We would all plot out, okay, what are we going to do for 13? We'd all talk together. So I could figure out what to draw would have people to draw. So I could be one step ahead of what the story was. What we really wanted, hey, guess what? You got 2 years pickup. Okay, great. Now we could plan out like 26 episodes. And so we could set up all these little subplots and characters. We could do this entire really complicated story that comes together at the end. But they only gave us renewals for every 13. Here's 13. Okay, here's another 13. Here's another, they did that for 5 years.
It seems like they were like, that seems like the thing with animated shows back then. It seems like no one wanted to give them any guarantee. Whereas like you have the likes of Friends that was picked up for 10 seasons, that unpopular opinion here, stopped being interesting after season 3. But
yeah. But they had a huge pickup, and it's like that's something we would have loved to have one thing, it would have guaranteed us work for 2 years, and each 13 episodes is about a year's worth of work. So having a pickup of more than one season would have been excellent for us, and we could plan out stuff better. But it was not to be. That's the way that things happen. So.
It's with Marvel. I've noticed. I'm not sure if your opinion would match mine here. They're starting to get into the animation stuff again now, but it seems like it's the one place DC was able to kick their ass in the last decade was animated stuff, animated properties like movies like Flashpoint, Under the Red Hood, and you worked on Superman, the Brainiac one. I mixed their two names together there in my mind for some reason.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, they did. There were friends of mine who worked on that stuff. Bruce Timm, Dan Reba, and people like that. That we all got into business about the same time, and and they get it. They know how to make good animated cartoon shows because they're also fanboys. Bruce Timm and I started at Filmation together, and along with Boyd Kirkland, along with other artists. I'm trying to remember the names right now, but basically we all started there and kind of branched out. Let's see, one of the X-Men artists, his name is Paul Smith. He worked there with us. Dave Stevens, Russ Heath. We all kind of started there and just went out into the animation world and did stuff, and we got a lot of opportunities to try and do new things. Bruce and I worked on, I don't know if you know He-Man comic book, the He-Man toys, sorry.
Yeah.
There's a comic book in the back. Well, I drew those. And Bruce Timm was my inker.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't know if they're here or not. Let's see. My room's a little mess right now, but I had that one. Oh, there they are. These little things like let's see. These little things. Those are the ones I drew. Let's see if I can find. Okay, this is the first one. So it's a whole stack of these little guys here. And this is like let's see. There he is.
Yeah.
I made up that bad guy called Geldor. He was, at the time I was thinking Mr. T was on TV, so I made him like that was my inspiration with Mr. T versus He-Man.
That's incredible.
That kind of yeah.
That room just seems to be just filled with memories.
Oh, it's junky. Yeah, this is one of the comic books I did at DC Comics. I'm up at the top. All-Star Squadron, working with Roy Thomas. So yeah, it was fun because I worked on like 118 episodes of Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I was working at Marvel Productions in the day and Ninja Turtles at night. And what you see on some of these things is like whenever I worked on the TV show, if they had toys, they gave us free toys. So I got all the turtles on that wall over there. RoboCop's up there, Black Star, Superpowers, Swamp Thing, Bucky O'Hare, and Dark Warriors over there somewhere. They're just push pinned in the wall. Some Captain Planets over there.
That's like a comic fans heaven right there. You mentioned Turtles there. One of your shows that you worked on that a friend of mine, when he found out I was talking to you on the show, it was the first show he brought up. He was a huge fan of the Ghostbusters animated show.
Oh, yes. That was a lot of fun to work on. Yes. I was working with that with Will Menio was a supervising director. And so I worked on that show with him. And that was a lot of fun. And that was a lot of fun. We got a chance to do Ghostbustings. And yeah, I'm trying to remember some of the storyboards and I can't pull them up right now. But I know we did something. The one I remember a name called, instead of Poltergeist, it was Poultrygeist and stuff like that. Some other shows where I think there was an episode where the Ghostbusters from another universe comes in and stuff like that. Yeah, but it was a lot of fun.
You were doing multiverse before it was cool.
Yeah. Let's see, what else was the other one? One was Karate Kid, and the other one was oh crap. What was another one? Ghostbusters. Oh, Captain Planet. Duh. I was the director on Captain Planet. That's right. Like kind of blurs together. It's like, what did I work on?
It must be amazing to like look back and all these things you've worked on, and again, you see all these fans on Twitter that like I haven't seen a day go past where I haven't seen one tweet about the animated X-Men series. Like there's someone mentioning it every single day. It hasn't gone away in almost 30 years.
That's great. You know, that it's real satisfying because there was a point when I think after when I finished about the year 2000 until I don't know, maybe 2000 until Disney bought the X-Men properties. I pretty much, me and my friends, we all thought that people forgot about the show because it wasn't, you couldn't buy tapes, it wasn't visible anywhere. And when myself and the voice talent and when the story editors, we go out to conventions, we didn't get any support from Marvel because Marvel didn't own it. It was Fox. Yeah. And so they didn't want anything to do. They didn't want to promote the X-Men at all. So we were kind of like the bastard child running around trying to talk, hey, I did the X-Men, you know, it's like, we were kind of like lone wolves out there. And then when Disney bought it, and suddenly we're back in the family again. And so now that we're on Disney Plus, a new generation discovered it and they really liked it. They still have good memories of it. And it was very nice. I mean, once they bought it, we got into conventions and people remember the show really well. And actually the voice actors were the most surprised because when we brought them down from Canada to the shows, I mean, their tables would be flooded with fans who want autographs and talk to them and stuff. And they were really like overwhelmed at all the good, how well received the show was. Even in Canada, it was like, X-Men, what? You know, it didn't take off like it did in the States.
Even over here in Ireland, it was huge here. Like me and a couple of my friends, it was all we used to talk about in school. And it was, yeah, like we loved it. It was just it was probably the best show of my childhood, up there with the Spider-Man show that was on Fox in the late 90s.
Right, yes.
Those two were just the two shows I always wanted to talk about.
But that show was produced by my friend John Semper. So if you ever want to talk to him, I can hook you up so you can interview him if you want.
That would be amazing. Thank you. I didn't want to ask about any of your connections. I didn't want you to feel like I was just trying to bounce over here. I'm 100% focused. But yeah, that would be amazing. I'd love to speak to him too. That means huge parts of my childhood I would have spoken to.
I can pass on your information and see what he does.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. I won't keep you for too much longer because, as you said, you're probably tired. You're signing loads of stuff for cons, and I know cons have changed now with COVID. It's a lot of Zoom conventions now.
Yeah, everything is Zooming. That's all I can do anymore.
How is this?
I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that once everybody, I should say, once a majority of people get the shots, the conventions hopefully will start coming back.
Yeah.
Because I know one of the reasons they're not, obviously, is people getting infected, but also, companies getting sued. So if there's less liability of that going on, then there's more people there's a chance more conventions can get started. So I'm hopeful to either late, winter of this year, but unless something happens, I'm definitely saying, okay, next year, I think everything will be back.
Yeah, and it'd be brilliant to see, because I missed the conventions this year. I really did. I do a lot of my networking at conventions as well as on Twitter, and that's how I get talking to artists and writers and people who come on the show. And I missed that this year. I missed the human interaction of it.
One thing is that over there, I'm not sure what the biggest convention is where you live, but if you can ever talk to any of the promoters over there, tell them that, I'm available. So are the voice actors. They usually book us as a group. We can visit over there and talk to the fans.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm 100% going to bring that up next time they mention the convention. The biggest one here is Dublin Comic Con. That's the big one. There's smaller ones throughout the year, but that's the major one. Yeah,
and sometime next year, tell them, hey, we're here. We'd love to come over and visit.
Yeah, fantastic. Sorry, just bear one moment. The dog is looking to get out. It's always when I'm recording. Sorry about that. It's always this is the longest I've gotten through recording without the dog barking or looking to go out. It's going so well.
Oh god. Yeah. He needed a bathroom break.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Last couple of questions for you, and I'll let you get back to hopefully relaxing. Don't to keep the rest them hands. Don't be signing too much stuff.
It's fine. I have what is the company called? Wizard World. I got a stack about this much of prints I got to sign downstairs. And when I finish with this, I'm going to go finish it. Then I got to take it off to the post office and mail it off and stuff. So it's good to stay in touch with the fans. That's one of the nice things about some of these conventions like Wizard World, because it's keeping us engaged with the fans.
And that's incredible that you're doing that you're like for the fans. And I'm sure there's going to be so many people completely fanboying when they receive these in the post.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons I put in so many cameos into the series, is that when I would add a cameo, I put it in there for the fans, but I tried to insert them into the show when it didn't interfere with the original story, so that if a regular person saw it and saw the cameo, it would be just like a utility pole or a chair. Yeah. It wouldn't mean anything to them. But if you were a fan, you caught a glimpse of another character, it was like, wow, did you see that? That kind of stuff. Seeing the Watcher, seeing the Eternity, seeing Iron Man, seeing what's another one? Thor, seeing these other characters pop up. It just, I know what it feels like to see those kind of cameos, because that's what Stan would do when I was reading my books in the 60s. It said I'd be reading Spider-Man, and in one panel they'd have a Thor would go through, and then Stan would have a footnote. If you want to see where Thor's going, go ahead and buy issue Tales of Suspense, blah blah blah, because he was like cross promoting the books, but he accidentally created this connected universe because they're all in the same city. And I remember that thrill I had reading that in the books, and so I just transferred that same enthusiasm from a kid and I put it into the show.
That to me is, from what you on the show and with the comic books, little cameos like that have actually helped me get into other characters. I was exclusively Spider-Man when I first started reading comic books, and then I
Right.
branched off into other heroes as they would appear in Spider-Man books. I'd be like, oh, he looks interesting, he looks cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go read it.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, it's a good way of introducing you to another character. And if it's written in the books, I'm talking about in the books, it's a way of, oh, go check out this, go check it. It's a great thing to do. But for me, it was like also you see a character and suddenly you see Deadpool. It's like, oh my God, what? Or stuff like that. I knew people would love it, and part of it, what I tell fans is that when I'm working, I try and minimize my adult cynicism and put it over here. I try and remember what it's like to be 9 years old reading a comic book. And when I'm drawing stuff or when I'm directing stuff, I try and put that into the show. Because if I can get the little boy in me still excited about something, hopefully it'll translate on screen to someone else.
That's exactly what you want, and I love hearing that. And it was blatantly obvious in the show that this was done by a comic fan, and I think that's why so many people took hold of it and have held it close to their chest all these years as the on-screen version of the X-Men. And that's so far until Feige can put up at least some competition to your X-Men on screen. They are the only on-screen X-Men.
Yeah. So I'm hopeful. I'm confident that the version that they're going to do, they will do a version that will satisfy the fans. I don't know what they're going to do because obviously I don't have any inside knowledge, but I'm confident that they will respect the original series.
Yeah, they do seem to respect the comics a lot, and like I said, for me, I know there's people who don't like Tom Holland Spider-Man. For me, reading Ultimate Spider-Man, he is the ultimate Spider-Man.
Right.
And what I do like about Marvel and I like about the X-Men show is they were loyal to at least one version of the comics history.
Right. And go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
The one thing I tell fans to think about is that the films, the animated shows, they are adaptations of the book. And so you can't really adapt the book, 100%.
Yeah.
Because a book is different from a film. But as long as you keep the core elements and the intent and the heart of the book into the film or the show, that's all you can ask for. Have someone people that can if you respect the source material and put it on the screen. I mean, it makes it so much enjoyable. When Captain America picks up Thor's hammer, it's like my audience lit up.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to see the film twice just to hear what the hell did he say, because it was screaming and hollering and stuff. It was like, and that was a fanboy moment. My wife saw it and she didn't understand what's so exciting about him picking up a hammer.
It was just one of them things. Like I'm going to get my partner into all the movies now, and it was Endgame when Spider-Man came through the portal after.
Oh yes.
After being dusted, and he comes through the portal. I'm a comic fan. I knew he wasn't gone forever, but when he came through the portal, I grabbed their leg and I was about to stand up.
I know, you see Spider-Man, you see all the characters come through the portal. The kicker was like, you see Captain. It was like a fantastic scene of this long shot. You see Captain America on one side against this entire fleet of army. It was like such a gorgeous shot. And the next cut you see is close on Captain America, and you hear on your left.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, on your left. And then it started happening. All the portals and Doctor Strange, Spider-Man. What's the other one? The Star-Lord people. They just all started coming back, and it's like you see the Black Panther people. It's like everybody was just. And then when he says, he calls the hammer back Avengers, and he says the symbol so small. Yeah. Oh man, the audience lit up.
So we've been waiting 10 years for him to say those two words.
Yes, And I didn't realize that they had never said those two words together ever, except for that one moment. They did start to say it before, but they cut it off in one of the other films.
I think it was Age of Ultron in the post-credit scene. I think they teased it. He said Avengers, and then they just cut it off there.
Cut off. Yeah, yeah, and you're wondering what? But they saved it. It was great.
Yeah, it was amazing, Larry. It was absolutely amazing to watch. I have one final question for you, and this might be a silly question, but your ringtone on your phone, is it the animated X-Men animated series theme?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
I can go to sleep happy. I need that is still the greatest theme music to any show ever.
It was a yeah. And just so you know, that version of the X-Men intro was maybe the 13th or 14th version. It wasn't the first one out of the bat. The composer that we were working with he was used to just making up anything. And we kept sending it back, because it wasn't right for the show. And then somewhere in one of the versions, he had a little piece. It was just a little piece in a whole bunch of stuff. We said, look, take that part, blow it up, do something with that part. And that's where he started coming up with the music. And that's where it started from. But it wasn't the first thing out the gate. No, there was a lot of crap. I'll just put it that way. A lot of crappy openings that we were going, oh, no, God, no, send it back, no. And he kept trying and trying and trying. And so until we got the one we got. And then I drew the intro. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up next before I let you go with that intro with the music. Perfection. That was the only word I can think of.
Yeah, the intro, I drew about 3 minutes of storyboards. It's in the book that Eric came out with. I don't have it here. And I drew about 3 minutes of animation, then we cut it down to just the stuff you saw. But I drew a whole lot more than what we needed. It had everybody, and it had the Brood, it had Dark Phoenix, it had Apocalypse, it had a whole bunch of stuff. And then we just culled it down to 1 minute.
It's I still get chills when I see, like, I'd be flicking through TikTok sometimes. I use TikTok to promote, and I see people bring up the animated series, and I'll hear that first, and just straight away, and then I see the intro coming in. I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm this little kid again, sitting with my bowl of cereal, watching the show.
Well, that's good. I'm glad it brings back I'm glad it brings back good memories for everyone, because it was I had to draw that over a weekend. I had no time, because a lot of people didn't believe in the show, so they didn't give me a lot of time to think. So when I drew the intro, I had to draw it fast. So that was like over a weekend, the X-Men intro. And then we cut it down to a minute. Then we had the music. We got music to match what I had drawn. And it was like this. Get it done. Okay. They didn't give me a lot of time to think. Yeah. I just had to go on like a gut instincts. First thought, put it on paper. Okay, that's it. Okay, next one. That's a lot of stuff. That's how a lot of stuff got done.
Well, it paid off. It worked. Your good instincts.
Thank you. I feel really good about everything now. At the time, it was like, oh shit, you're just drawing and hope everything turns out right. That was that was also the I did the G.I. Joe movie intro. That's right. And it was kind of the same thing. I had no time, so I started drawing stuff. And it was like Cobra attacking the Statue of Liberty, and G.I. Joe comes and stops him. And I was like, I had to just make up stuff and draw stuff and just come up with it quickly.
It's honestly, like I said, it's incredible with everything you've worked on. And like, I knew from the start, I knew the X-Men animated series, I knew there was Spider-Man as Amazing Friends, but the more research I'd done coming into this, the more I seen that you actually worked on, and it's basically everything, almost everything I watched growing up. Like,
80s and 90s, it was fun. I got a chance to work on almost everything. everything action adventure. At the end, I was working. Believe it or not, I was working on Care Bears.
I did see that, and that was a very opposite approach to what.
Yes, I had to talk them into it because they didn't believe I could work on Care Bears. But I said, no, I'm a director. Come on, give me a shot. So I worked on a CBS series, and then I did 3 Care Bear movies.
So it's just multi-talented. That's like, at first I looked twice when I seen Care Bears, and I was like,
yes, I know.
That's wrong.
It's like, Care Bears? Huh? What? Yeah, that's what they did. I had to talk them into it back then, but it worked out. I got a chance to flex some different muscles other than superheroes, and it was fun.
So you mentioned now you're retired, and it's the only thing that'll make you come back is the Xmen. So is it just kind of now? Is it just there's the conventions now? Is kind of almost like a hobby at this stage?
Yeah, it's a fun way. It's a fun hobby. Whenever they come back, well, let me put it. Whenever they come back, I'll be there.
Yeah.
But before they got canceled, it was a very nice way of my wife and I getting out the house.
Yeah.
They pay for our vacation. We go for a weekend over here in Oregon or Florida or Texas, and it was quite enjoyable. I enjoyed those. Meeting all the fans and getting out the house.
Hopefully you're back soon and we can secure you a trip to Ireland.
Yeah. Well, talk to some promoters out there. Say next year they're available. Just talk to the agent. There's one agent that works for us, and just give them a call.
I will definitely be doing that. Look, I am extremely appreciative. I'm still starstruck talking to you, but I'm very appreciative for you coming on and talking to me today. And I would just like to say thank you very much for everything you've done in terms of my childhood TV experience. And also thank you very much for coming on and speaking to me today. You're an absolute gentleman, and I am going to get you over to Ireland.
Okay. I appreciate it, man. Thank you for inviting me. I enjoyed talking with you, and hope to do so again soon, hopefully in person. It'll be good. And so thank you for inviting me.
No problem at all. Listen, stay safe, and hopefully this will all go back to some form of normal soon.
Oh, you and me both. Fingers crossed.